Welcome to Ida's video channel. In this video, I will show you how to display labels in a profile view bands at the vertical alignment curve start, PVI and end. In a previous exercise, we created those profiles with the vertical curves and offset profile for pipe invert. And now I want to display the labels in a profile view bands at those points. How can I do that? Let me show you. First of all, we have a pipe invert profile here, which is a little bit different. Let me go to profile view properties and I will display it. I go to profile and there's a pipe invert. This profile was created from the pipe network with IDAs. Let me go to display pipe invert. Okay. And you can see that it doesn't follow the vertical curve nicely because this is created from the pipe network. For example, at this vertical curve, I inserted more structures, as you can see here, and it follows a little bit better, but still there's a discrepancy between the pipe invert profile because pipes are vertically straight, not curved, and my design profile. This is the cover, this is invert. And as I mentioned, I want to display values at the curve start, PVI and end, which means I can't use this profile from pipe network. What I will do, I will rename this profile because if I go to profile properties, it is called bulk water copy, whatever. I will change it to invert. So I have a VA invert and pipe invert. This is a vertical alignment that I designed, and the other invert is from the pipe network. If I displayed the pipe would go straight here. And let me add vertical lines at those geometry points. I will select the vertical alignment, the profile, right click, and then I go to edit labels. Under the type, select either crest curve or sec curve. In fact, you should do it for both. I will start with a crest curve. And then under the label, select PVI vertical line and edit. What I will do, I want to see it nicely in a profile view. So I will change the color so you can see better which objects were added. Because if all of them are yellow, it might be a bit confusing. So I'm going to change the color, but you don't need to do that. It's just for you, for visual representation. So I'm going to edit current selection, and then I will change the color to be pink. I will use this color. Okay, okay, okay. Then I need to change the dimension anchor option and I want to attach it to graph view bottom. And the offset from the graph view bottom should be 0. Then I click OK. And this is the line. It was only added to the vertical curves and I have only one vertical curve here and you can see the result. But it doesn't start at the profile. It starts at a profile PVI, which in this case is not what I want because I don't want to display PVI. If you want, you can display the tangents for the PVI. If you don't want, if you want the vertical line to stop at the vertical alignment, you can do that. Select the vertical alignment or profile and go to Edit Labels. And then click on a PVI vertical line. Click on this icon. And then use option Edit Current Selection. This vertical line has an anchor point at start to PVI. Change that to Anchor Curve Midpoint. Click OK, OK, and OK, and the line starts at the midpoint on the curve itself. It looks better. Let's add other vertical lines for the start point and end point. Select Profile or Vertical Alignment and go to Edit Labels. Then select Crest Curve and here select the beginning of vertical curve, vertical line, click Add. And you can also add end of vertical curve, vertical line, Add. And now we will modify the properties and dimension anchor option and all that. So I will change the color again. You don't need to do that. It is just for you to see the result. So I'm going to change the color to be pink. And I will do the same for this one. Again, color to be pink. Okay, OK. Then I need to change the dimension anchor option graph view bottom, and 0 offset, 0 offset. OK, and it adds those other 2 vertical lines that stop at the graph view bottom. If I want to add the labels for the sec curves as well, or those vertical lines, I can go to Edit Labels for the profile, and then I will select sec curve, and I will use the same labels: PVI vertical line, beginning of vertical curve BVC vertical line, and EVC vertical line. OK, then I change the graph view bottom. Unfortunately, as per my knowledge, you can't change all of them at once. This is a very old school user interface, because modern user interface would have a filters here, multiple selection, modifications, and all that. Let me click OK. And if I zoom out, you can see that the vertical lines were added to the sec curve as well. And I can start adding the labels in a profile view bands. Let me go to profile view properties, but I will check the band name, which is distance. And then I will modify the distance band. Let me go to profile view properties, bands. As you can see here, distance at structure has 2 bands for start, the other one for end. So beginning of the pipe, end of pipe, or start structure and structure. We use 2 profile view bands for them because we want to move the labels individually, not as a block. And then there is another one for distance at interval. And if it uses the capital letters, that's because you need to set up profile 1 and profile 2. That's why it is written with the capital letters. And it is a different band type. It is a profile data. And this one must use an invert. But now I want to use a different invert. I want to use the design invert, not invert from pipes. So let's do that. So under the profile 1, which defines the geometry points. The geometry points can be defined under this column. If I go to 3-dot button, here I can specify the profile 1. If I do that here, I will use a vertical alignment invert. And then I can choose which geometry points I want to label, and I want tangent curve intersection, curve tangent intersection, and point of vertical intersection. Then I click OK. You can see that it updated this profile 1 as well. So profile 1 is used for the geometry points. The actual elevations are taken from the profile 2, but let me stretch it a bit. From the profile 2, but in this case it doesn't really matter because the NGL surface is not displayed at the interval, only the distance. And I will click OK to see the result. Let me do that. OK, and here is the result. If I want to, again, if I want to nicely display them with a different color so you can see what was introduced here, I will modify that band. So I select it, or I can go from profile view properties as well, it doesn't matter. And then I go to profile data, distance at interval, and I will go to edit current selection. Then for ticks at vertical geometry points, I will change the color to pink. Again, you don't need to do that. It is just for you to see what I changed. And for the vertical geometry points, I want to change the label color. And again, I will use that pink color. OK, 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 and OK. And you will see that the text changes. And by the way, you can see that there are some labels here. There's no vertical curve, and Civil 3D adds the labels there. That's why I wanted to change the color so you can clearly see what's happening. I believe this is a Civil 3D bug, and I will explain you why this label is there. The reason is that there is a point of vertical intersection. When I was working with this file, I did some changes and I didn't update properly my structures or my profiles. And that's why I have a PVI away from the structure, and that's why it added this label. In fact, this label would be overlapping with this label, so no problem here. But I can see that there is a problem. And now the question is, why does it display the label at the grade change if there is no vertical curve? Let me show you. If I go to Profile View Properties, then I go to Geometry Points for that distance at interval band, and you can see that I ticked point of vertical intersection. As per my understanding of Civil 3D terminology, point of vertical intersection is the point which is at the sec curve or crest curve, while grade break is where you have a tangent and tangent connection if there is a grade break. So even if I didn't tick that on, it still labels the grade breaks. So I believe this is a bug, because at other places, if I go to Profile Labels, let me go there, Edit Labels. If I come in here, you can label grade breaks, crest curve, set curves individually. So there's a little bit of discrepancy in Civil 3D terminology, and I believe that's a bug. But luckily, it's not a big problem, because if everything was designed properly at this point, this label would be overlapping with that label, and there would be no problem. Let's do another band just quickly. So let's go to Profile View Properties. And then we have a next one, which is ground levels. We have only two profile view bands that are overlapping. The first one, the levels at structure. The second one, levels at interval, ground levels at interval. So again, the profile one is the profile that is used for geometry points. And I must set it up to VA bulk water invert. But I must define its geometry point. So I click on a three-dot button. As you can see, this profile was automatically set here. And again, I want to use a tangent curve, curve tangent, and point of vertical intersection. Then I click OK. And then I click OK. Again, if I want to, I can change the colors. Let me do that quickly. Let me go to Profile View Properties. Then I go to Ground Levels at Interval. I go to Edit Current Selection. Then I will change the vertical geometry points label color. You don't need to do that. It's just for you to see better the objects I'm adding into my profile view. And then under Display, for the vertical geometry points, I will use the color pink. OK, OK, OK. And the rest looks right, NGL. And let me click OK. So this is the result. And let's do one more pipe invert level. Let's go there. Profile View Properties. Then I look at the inverts. They consist of 3 profile view bands. Those are at structure, start, and this one uses the profile data. Profile 1 invert, profile 2 invert. So I will set the geometry points, this one, and the point of vertical intersection, OK. This one must be bulk water invert, VA bulk water invert. Again, if I want to, I can change the colors. Let me do that quickly for you to see better the new labels in a profile view. OK, and then I go to Band Details, Vertical Geometry Points, and I will change the color like that. OK, 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 OK. And here are the labels. There's some overlappings here. You can see that the labels are not matching nicely. Why is that happening? Because I have a discrepancy between my profile and the structure itself. As you can see here, the same applies to other one. If I look at this location, I think there's a discrepancy, as you can see, because I didn't adjust my pipe network. I could run IDAS command to match the profile inverts, and that would solve the problem. And let's look a little bit to the right-hand side. I wanted to see if there are labels here that display underneath this, but luckily nothing is displayed. That looks also good. But as you know, you can always delete the labels if you want to. You can press Ctrl and then you can select label and delete it. And if you want to delete label and the tick line, then you would need to modify a style a bit. Let me quickly show you. If you want to delete for whatever reason this label, if I press Ctrl and I delete that label, it disappears, but the tick line is still there. So is there a way to fix it, let me show you how you can do that. Select the label, right-click, you can go directly to Edit Band Style, then select Vertical Geometry Points, and we don't want any ticks, they are full ticks. What we can do, we can go to Display, Ticks at Vertical Geometry Points, we can tick that off, but you want to display them for others. So you go back to Band Details, Vertical Geometry Point, Compose Label, and you can create tick here. You can call the line tick, and then you can specify that it must be from band bottom up to band top. You can change the color. We can use a pink again, so it looks the same. But now the tick is part of the component or the label itself. It is not the layer above where you can specify those ticks. And if it is part of this label, then if you delete the label, it removes that tick as well. Let me show you. I will select label, delete, and both are gone. So that might help in cases where you want to delete a specific label. I covered a bit about that in the cleaning up the profile view. And that's about how to display those labels at the vertical curve geometry points.